Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, and we're located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, we are talking about the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump, the FBI, of course, the subject, the purveyors of the raid. We started the show yesterday by picking up with Attorney General Merrick Garland and trying to explain to America why this was not a catastrophe. But we've got a lot of more unpacking to do. And as we talked about in our morning walk and talk this morning, it's Friday, right? So a lot of people have had time to digest it. Republicans and Democrats alike, national security people. A lot of people have been, on Monday, we all sort of had this big, disgusting meal shoved in front of us. We said, oh, a raid of the former president's house? Well, that doesn't sound good. And they said, that's right, but it's going down the hatch. So just eat it. And they fed it to all of us. And now we've had some time to digest it. And it is as bad as it's tasted going in. And so we're going to see a lot of reaction from many individuals around the country. But before we get into any of that, we have to make sure that we understand what is going on. And so as usual, we go over to our mind map. And the first segment that we're going to talk about is Trump demanding the releasing of the warrant and the court obliging. We've got on Truth Social, Donald Trump was out there. And so we're going to take a look at Truth Social, actually his feed, and see what he had to say about it, because he did publish a statement about the raid and really a response to Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, came out yesterday and said really not much of anything. He spoke for about 4 minutes and there wasn't a lot there. But Donald Trump did release a statement. Judicial Watch sent that into the court. Judge Reinhart had the chance to look at it and ended up unsealing it. And then we are going to, of course, take a look at the actual search warrant. We'll review the court docket before we get out of here. A lot of activity, lots of different media individuals all trying to, intervene and trying to get all the records unsealed. And so we'll take a look at the docket. Not a ton interesting other than the unsealing. But I did have a friend, shout out to AM, who sent over this, reminded me of this, sort of found this over at the government archival website. And this is a letter from February 18, 2022, where there's a lot of back and forth between Donald Trump, the National Archives, and even Congress, right? So a lot of people have been talking about these documents. And so we're all begging the question, asking ourselves, why now? Why is this suddenly a big, gigantic catastrophe that warrants the FBI? Seems very convenient in the months leading up to an election. And so we'll unpack that. In fact, we have several Republicans who are going to help us unpack that. We've got a promise of revenge or vengeance, or there are going to be, let's just say, repercussions, shall we? The Republicans are very angry about it, or let me say their constituents are probably very angry about it. We're going to see guys who are sort of oppositional originally to Donald Trump, like Senator Rubio and Senator Paul, who are recognizing, oh, yeah, maybe a lot of the things he was talking about was right. And they're going to come to his defense, largely, I'm going to guess, because their constituents are outraged like the rest of America. So we are going to hear from Senator Rubio, and he actually sent a letter over to the FBI that we're going to read through today. We've also got a compilation that was assembled by The Recount. The Recount's a Twitter account, which is, sort of lefty, I'd say. I think pretty lefty. But they put together this compilation, and they're sort of saying, look how angry these Republicans are. These people are maniacs. They're going to take over in America again. They're going to insurrect us all. God help us, because if they get their hands on the podium a second time, we may not be able to stop them. They may get full control of America at that point. And so there's a compilation of Republicans and the sort of Democrats are saying, God, they're really outraged. We talked yesterday about the FBI and about that woman on ABC News who was sort of animated, giddy almost about potential violence there out of the FBI office. And so, they're kind of wanting this violent reality to become a thing. And I don't think it's going to. Anyways, so we've got that. We've got Senator Rand Paul. You may have heard he was out there talking about the possibility that the FBI actually planted evidence in the boxes that were being carried out of Donald Trump's residence. Did you hear what I just said? A United States senator, who's a pretty reputable guy, a doctor, a United States senator, went on TV and accused the FBI of potentially inserting documents into boxes that were seized under the color of a legal warrant as they were being commandeered and removed from the former president's house in America. Okay. All right. Well, so we've got that. Senator Rand Paul's going to get us started there. And then Representative James Comer, he also sent a letter. And this is typically, the format. I make fun of everybody in Congress for sending letters. But, what else are they going to do? They're Congress people. That's what they do. They sit around and vote, and they read bullet points off teleprompters, and they go in front of, cameras, and they regurgitate uselessness. But these are our letters, and so we are going to read them because they are sort of angry about what we're angry about, which is the wrecking of America. So we're going to go through the Republicans. They are demanding action and answers, and so we'll piece that together. And then in our last segment, we will take a look at Liz Cheney. I know it's Friday, and that's rough. That's a rough thing to do. You're probably sitting there going, Rob, really? Like on our last segment, too, on all of this? Yeah, it's true, but it's going to be a fun one. Liz Cheney's down 30 points, and Adam Kinzinger came out, and he is admitting now that Donald Trump won. It's just too good to be true. He comes out, and this is just an outstanding clip. Whoever clipped this, actually, I've got the name of the person, and they just cut it off right at the perfect point, and it's just outstanding. So we'll leave the show with that on a high note, but we do have to sift through a little bit of Liz Cheney because she's got an election coming up next week, and she is not doing so hot, not doing so good. She is going to be giving her closing arguments to the voters out of Wyoming. And CNN went around and they asked people like this woman, who is just as red-blooded American as anybody, outstanding. She said, she shares her opinion about Liz Cheney, and so we'll save that when we get there. But as you can see, my friends, my goodness, we have a lot to get to. And if you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've got an amazing community over there chatting away. And I see Happy Old Cat Lady shared a locals chat, super chat. So shout out to the new locals chats that we have. It's just amazing. I don't know how to integrate them yet, but amazing. Thank you for that. The Antiquus Prime, Savvy Sue, John McGarvey, JC the Music Man. We were getting a bunch of new signups over there. A lot of people enjoying the morning walk and talks. Shout out to our YouTube members who joined up. And big shout outs to Paul McGarvey. Paul McGarvey, Paul Mino. What's it? Paul McGarvey. Who is that? What is that? That's Friday. I'm exhausted. All right. So Paul Mino. I pinned this one before the show started. Paul Mino was in here. Paul Mino knows a lot about colors and chartreuse and things like that. Very intelligent individual. But he was out and he said, hey, Rob, the combat sports community is donating some memberships to your channel today in honor of Bill W. Amazing. And good folks like you keep up the good work. And so if you were here this morning, there were 10 chats or 10 memberships that were handed out. Thank you to Paul Mino and the MMA community over there. All my brothers and sisters out there who know how to hit the mats. All right. Thank you to you all. And thank you, Paul. Very generous of you. Appreciate that. Also, thank you for subscribing and for not forgetting about our law firm, the R&R Law Group. This is where our team helps good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope. If you know anybody in the state of Arizona that has been charged with a crime, our mission is to help good people maintain the presumption of innocence, fight for their due process, make the government prove the burden of proof and not us withhold those constitutional protections. And thank you for referring people over to our law firm. All right. And so without any further ado, my friends, let's get right into it, shall we? Donald Trump demanded that the federal government, the federal court, the federal judge, the DOJ, everybody release the warrant. Guess what happened? They obliged. It happened today. We are going to go through this. Remember, in a prior show, we had picked up with Merrick Garland and his conversation about why they conducted the raid, learned very, very little about the actual rationale behind this, but they did communicate that Merrick Garland was the individual who authorized the search warrant, made it possible. He said it all went up to him. He signed on the dotted line, and it happened. And so Donald Trump now was responding to Merrick Garland saying, since Donald Trump made this public, I am now asking the court to unseal the warrant so that America can see it. Now, the ball was kicked over to Donald Trump. They said, wonder what he's going to do. Is he going to object to the motion to unseal filed by the Attorney General? Or is this going to be something that he agrees to? Well, right after the program, we flipped over to True Social, and Donald Trump shared a couple things late last night. And he said, hey, America, says not only will I not oppose the release of the documents related to the un-American, unwarranted, and unnecessary raid and break-in of my home in Palm Beach, Florida, I am going a step further by encouraging the immediate release of those documents, even though they have been drawn up by radical left Democrats and possible future political opponents who have a strong and powerful vested interest in attacking me, much as they have done for the last 6 years. He writes, my poll numbers are the strongest they have ever been. Fundraising by the Republican Party is breaking all records, and midterms elections are fast approaching. This unprecedented political weaponization of law enforcement is inappropriate and highly unethical. The world is watching as our country is being brought to a new low, not only on our border, crime, economy, energy, national security, and so much more, but also with respect to our sacred elections. Release the documents now. And that was something that came out from Donald Trump, and we were sort of waiting, prognosticating, what's he going to do? Is he going to release it or not? And it turns out he said we can go ahead and release those documents. Now, he also told us this. He says that my attorneys and representatives were already cooperating fully and had very good relationships with the FBI and with the National Archives, as we will review. But he said a little bit more. He said, does anybody really believe that Joe Biden and the White House knew nothing about this great embarrassment to our country, the biggest story since Afghanistan? He's talking about Lincoln Project and some other things. But after he said that he doesn't oppose the release of the warrants and those documents, he posted again, release the documents now. He said that. And then he posted another Save America. Now, there was some hint from the former president, from Donald Trump, saying that this was about nuclear materials, that they had all sorts of confidential documents that could never be trusted in the hands of somebody who was entrusted with them for 4 years. You know, something was very dangerous about all of this all of a sudden. And when we were prognosticating about this, one idea was maybe it wasn't necessarily about Trump. Maybe it wasn't necessarily about him. Maybe it was about somebody else in Mar-a-Lago, right? Somebody else could have gotten access to that. And so the FBI just swept in to seize it before, Donald Trump wasn't the problem. He's not even relevant at all, right? This has just had to do with something else. And it just happened to be at Donald Trump's place, right? Some other rationale to justify this, or some other rationale to justify the urgency of this. Okay. Maybe like this is a scene out of 24 or Jason Bourne movie. The FBI had to go seize these documents before one of Putin's, intelligence KGB officers seized the nuclear codes and bombed America back into the Stone Age, right? Maybe there's some alternative explanation. What could the documents be? Everybody's on TV all over the place talking about top secret information and all this crap, right? They're all just sort of talking in circles because nobody knows what the basis is of the entire investigation. And we are going to get to the search warrant that came out, but we're not going to see the affidavit or the basis for probable cause or why this was authorized in the first place, because right, this is supposed to be leading to what? Criminal prosecutions. That's why you have warrants in the first place. So Trump is here and he says, all right, America, look, they're all talking about this nuclear weapon stuff. Washington Post released an article and they said, he wrote today, he said, nuclear weapons issue, America, is a hoax, just like Russia was a hoax. 2 impeachment were a hoax, and the Mueller investigation was a hoax, and much more. Same sleazy people involved. Why wouldn't the FBI allow the inspection of areas at Mar-a-Lago with our lawyers or others present? Made them wait outside in the heat. Wouldn't let them even close. Said absolutely not. Planting information, anyone? Question mark? Oh, yeah, and it's not just him, right? It's not like a lot of people will say, oh, it's Donald Trump. He's just a crazy maniac. Yeah, Rand Paul is making that same claim when he was on with Fox and Friends this morning. We'll get there later. Reminds me of a Christopher Steele dossier, which we talked a lot about in the Michael Sussman trial. which was Hillary Clinton's campaign lawyer sitting down, that was Michael Sussman, sitting down with James Baker over from the FBI and facilitating the transfer of information that was created by Perkins Coie through Fusion GPS, which helped conduct and create this entire Steele dossier. Do you see the circles? If you've been here, we've been following this, and Donald Trump just called it. He said, remember this? The Christopher Steele dossier. It all comes full circle. Same people, same sleazy people, he says. He's right. And so he says, Democrats in Congress should strongly vote against the biggest green fake New Deal in history. That's a little bit off topic, but he does say that he's 100% against this, which is true. And he's also talking about Liz Cheney, so I didn't see any of this. But he says President Barack Obama also kept 33 million pages of documents, most of them classified. How many of them pertained to nuclear? Word is lots, he said. Number one, he writes, it was all declassified. Number two, they didn't need to seize anything. They could have had it anytime they wanted without playing politics and breaking into Mar-a-Lago. It was in secured storage with an additional lock put on as per their request. And we went through that document yesterday. We actually read part of the emails, right? Or read an article that had excerpts from the emails that said verbatim, National Archives, can you secure that a little bit? Sure, happy to do it. Receive, we'll do it, no problem. Trump says we obliged. They could have had it any time they wanted, and that includes long ago. All they had to do was ask. The bigger problem is, what are they going to do with the 33 million pages of documents, many of them which are classified, that Obama took to Chicago? And he reposted the Save America video, which if you haven't seen it, it's 3 minutes and 50 seconds. I'd encourage you to go check that out. So Donald Trump, he's saying, look, yeah, we were perfectly willing to cooperate with the FBI, with anybody that needed these documents. And we'll take a look at that right here. In fact, there is some evidence of that because this has already been documented. In fact, many people are talking about this series of email exchanges that occurred between Donald Trump and, as we'll see, the National Archives right here, February 18th, 2022. Okay, like that's not that long ago. Relatively recently. This is over to Carolyn Maloney. She's a U.S. House of Representatives member. And look who this is being written by, the National Archives. Right there, David Ferriero, archivist. And what is happening here, as you can see, House of Representatives sending a letter over to the National Archives complaining about Trump. They sent this letter back on February 9th. It says, okay, Congresswoman, we got your letter. You asked a number of questions about 15 boxes of records that were at Trump's place in Mar-a-Lago. There it is. Congress sends a letter to the archives. We're mad at Trump. We want to make his life miserable. I heard he has some boxes of stuff that he took out of the White House. Hillary has some old shoes in there. She wants them back. Can you figure this out for me? So Congress sends it over to this archivist. Archivist says, let me look into those boxes of Hillary shoes. Okay, I know that they, probably Bill left them over. Says, did NARA ask the representatives if former President Trump about missing records? If so, right, what was provided? NARA, he says, NARA had ongoing communications with representatives of former President Trump throughout 2021, which resulted in the transfer of 15 boxes to NARA in January 2022. Right? So Trump is complying at the moment. Congress says, please provide a description of the contents of the recovered boxes. NARA, they say, well, we're in the process of inventorying the boxes. Records are subject to the Presidential Records Act, and therefore any request for information has got to go through the PRA, the Presidential Records Act. Go figure it out with them. Don't ask me about it. Are the contents, Congress says, are the contents of the boxes recovered by NARA, are they undergoing a review to determine if they contain classified information? And they say, yeah, NARA has identified items marked as classified national security information within the boxes. Yeah, there's national. He was the president. You understand that, right? Is NARA aware of any additional presidential records from the Trump administration that may or may not be missing in NARA's possession? They say, yeah, some social media records. NARA has learned that they've conducted official business while using non-official electronic messaging accounts that were not copied, right? Same crap you'd hear about in any administration. Nobody raided Hillary Clinton over this. Nobody raided Barack Obama over this. What efforts has been taken to recover these things? NARA has asked the representatives of former President Trump to continue to search as required. and they talk about Trump tearing up some documents, but they're, it's all back and forth. They ask for letters. Trump gives them 15 boxes. Congress is writing them about this. What? Oh, we need 15 boxes of material. We need answers about those. And they say, well, we had questions about him too. In fact, we sent a letter over to Donald Trump about him, and he sent us the boxes. Great. All right. So I guess that means we should raid him or something. Now, there's a lot going on. The Judicial Watch then took a note of that, and they actually submitted this. This was kind of funny. I think I pulled this up here. So, yeah, Judicial Watch sent in this document. They've just filed this on 8/12, which is today. They said, Judge, did you see Donald Trump on True Social? He's got a banger of an account over there. Check it out, Exhibit A. And they also posted this actual, sort of the official press release from Donald Trump, which is the statement that we just read. Right, so this is the formal filing. Judicial Watch flies right out of the gates, and they just say, all right, well, says he is now openly admitting that this is, or openly acknowledging that he's okay disclosing these warrants. Signs off on it, release the documents now. Judicial Watch files that. So then it goes over to the judge, and the judge comes out, and he says, all right, well, I mean, if Trump wants it out, on 8/12, judge turns around. In the case of the sealed search warrant, Judge Reinhart comes out and he says, all right, well, we've got the order to unseal here now. Get ready, America. The United States moves to unseal the search and seizure warrant, including attachments A and B and the redacted versions of the inventory of seized items. And you go, wait a minute. There's no affidavit in there. Where is the affidavit? And the court writes, well, having reviewed the motion and being otherwise fully advised, it is ordered that the motion is granted. Documents will be released. The clerk of the court shall unseal docket entry 17 forthwith, done and ordered in chambers by Judge Bruce Reinhart, United States Magistrate Judge. And so, my goodness, right? That's, well, okay, well, that happened pretty quickly. And you don't see that a whole lot, where there's quick activity. And we'll continue on with that in one quick minute as soon as I turn on subscriber only mode, because I think we have a lot of activity in the house. Shout out to everybody in the house. But it looks like, or maybe slow mo. Maybe we'll do something like that. All right. So, because we just give the mods a little bit of a break. Yeah. So slow mode there. All right. And so, all right, so we're going back now to the mind map, and let's see. Okay. Back to the mind map, here we are. Now, we just took a look at the order to unseal, and the judge then released the warrant, and the warrant came out, and we're going to unpack this one a little bit more closely so that we can really spend our time on it. So here it is. Coming out of the United States District Court, this is the search and seizure warrant for Trump's residence in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. And as you can see, it just briefly describes the premises, okay, where the search and where the seizure is supposed to be taking place. The case is listed here. And until this time, right, when all of this was being filed and drafted, nobody knew anything about this, right? Everybody was sort of, Trump didn't even know about it until that morning. A lot of people were surprised by this, other than Joe Biden and the Biden administration. And it says, to any authorized law enforcement officer, it looks like a pretty standard search and seizure warrant here. It is written clearly. It's just a form, right? It's not even something that's independently drafted. It's a form you just print off of a website. It says, an application by a federal law enforcement officer or an attorney for the government requests the search out of the Southern District of Florida. See attachment A. We'll take a look at it. I find that the affidavits coming from the court or recorded testimony establishes probable cause to search and seize, right? So probable cause for what? It's just a form document. It's nothing special here. It's just a form. Probable cause for what? A crime is why you fill this stuff out. It's to go investigate something. See attachment B. You are commanded to execute this warrant on or before August 19th. They, of course, have done that in the daytime, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Unless otherwise, notice is authorized. Give a copy of the warrant and a receipt at the residence, right? And there's a lot of debate about this. Okay, a lot of the lefties are coming out and saying that Donald Trump And his people, his lawyers, say that they never got a copy of the warrant. Merrick Garland came out yesterday, and he said specifically that they did leave a copy of the warrant. And so we've already unpacked this issue, right? If they're calling the warrant, or like let's say the cover sheet the warrant, or maybe they're just leaving this front page, right? Maybe they're just leaving this front page, and they say, his lawyers say, that's not the full warrant. I want the affidavit. I want the statement of justification. Where's the probable cause basis for all of this? I want the full thing. I want the application. I want the affidavit. I want every bit of it. And if you don't give me every bit of it, well, then I don't think that I got the warrant, right? So it's two people talking sort of in circles around each other. They say, we gave you the warrant. They hand you a sheet of paper. You say, I don't know what you think this is, but this is not the warrant that I'm looking for. I want all of it. I want the full thing. So people are going to be beating themselves up over this today. And it's just not really, it's not really that productive. Until we know what this is about, all of this is just, it's technical review. What are they doing? What is the White House doing? Are they prosecuting the former president, Donald Trump? Are they prosecuting him, charging him with a crime? Yes or no? Because if they went in and seized all of these boxes, all of these documents, there must be a next thing that happens, right? They seized it to prosecute him. Now it's time to communicate that to us. Or are they just like done? It's just like, okay, the library books got returned now, so we'll just waive your overdue balances, Trump. No, right? They want to do something with this. Isn't it supposed to be consequential? Why would they do something entirely unprecedented if it's just kind of like paying a traffic ticket? Well, we got our books back. I told you if we let you borrow those, you're going to have to return them. And if you don't return them, I'm going to come get them. So it says here, unless delayed or otherwise noted, right? The rest of this is all just pretty much boilerplate. Like I said, it's a form document signed off on by the judge, Judge Reinhart. And then we get a little bit more information. The inventory is all sort of left blank here. As we get down a little bit further, this is a blank form, but we go down to the attachments because they're referencing the attachments. It says, all right, here's what we're talking about. The premises to be searched, Mar-a-Lago, is further described as a resort, a club, a residence located near the intersection of Southern Boulevard and Ocean Boulevard. It's a mansion. Of course it is. It's got 58 bedrooms, 33 bathrooms. It's on a 17-acre estate. Location is including 45 office. You see that there. Wonder what that is. I wonder who that belongs to. All storage rooms and all other rooms or areas within the premises used or available to be used by the F. POTUS, so their former president of the United States, and his staff, in which boxes or documents could be stored, right? That's a really broad envelope. In the law, we talk a lot about hula hoops and about scope and about, how far your searches can extend or how far your arguments can go or where your evidence is included, but then it's cut off. Pretty broad. All storage room and all other rooms or areas within the premises that were actually used or available to be used. Okay, so it just gets broader and broader and broader. All storage rooms, like all closets. Okay, all closets, got it. And anything else that's kind of like a closet also. And also any area that's not even a closet, could be an area that is used or potentially used to just store something in it. Or if it's just used or available to be used, where they could store boxes, right? So it's like, I don't know, I'm in my recording studio here and I've got boxes all over the place. I'm storing boxes, I guess, including all structures or buildings on the estate. It does not include areas currently at the time of the search being occupied, rented, or used by third parties, such as Mar-a-Lago members, or not otherwise used or available to be used by the former president of the United States, such as private guest suites, right? So making a clear distinction, Trump stuff, not guest stuff, all right? Well, that sounds pretty broad. And the property to be seized. So we've got the area to be searched in attachment A, and the property to be seized. Let's see what we've got. So it is all physical documents and records constituting evidence, contraband, fruits of crime, or other illegally possessed items in violation of U.S. code, including the following. Any physical documents with classification markings, along with any containers, boxes, including any other contents in which such documents are located, that are collectively stored or found together as containers or boxes. Don't you hate how painful this stuff is to read? Okay, boxes of stuff. Got it. Synthesize that. Boxes of stuff. B, information, including communications in any form about the retrieval of national defense information or classified material. So that's going to be, right, any type of conversation. So I guess that could include in any form, whether it's a hard drive, something technical, something paper, like burned into hard media, CDs and stuff like that. Any government or presidential records created between January 2017 and January 2021. Right? And now you start asking yourselves, you start to say, man, this is really, really broad. And they're talking, fruits of crime, evidence of a crime, illegal possession, meaning this is all criminality that they're talking about, right? This is evidence of crimes. So they think that they can just sit quiet and just say, well, we're investigating him. We can't talk about ongoing investigations because we're the Justice Department and we have, ethical obligations to follow and so on and so forth. Like that excuse is not going to fly. They may get away with that with Hunter Biden, but this is somebody else who's running for president and has a very likely chance of winning. Search warrant continues. It says that they can also seize any evidence of the knowing alteration, destruction, concealment of any governmental or presidential records or of any documents with classification markings. Very, very broad. So not a lot of details there, as we expected, right? If this did involve national security implications, it would be obvious that they would either redact these things out or Merrick Garland would know that there's just not enough there to sort of be a threat to national security. You just describe the boxes, as we'll see they did. So this is the receipt for the property. And right, this may have been what they handed Trump's lawyers too. You just don't know, right? Papers are flying around. I can't tell you how many clients have come to our office in Scottsdale and, will come in and they'll just, I don't know what the heck happened, right? It's a whirlwind. I have this piece of paper over here. This piece of paper is crumbled up over there, right? The whole thing is just madness because especially if you're Donald Trump or his people, you're not expecting the FBI to show up on your front door at 4 a.m. in the morning and raid your private residence when you are a former president. It's not typical, but they did. And so, like I said, there's a lot of confusion. Trump's people may have said, we didn't get it. Merrick Garland says, we got it. I don't know who you believe. I know who I believe based on the prior course of history that has been conducted from the FBI. We've followed it a lot. Receipt for property. Name, Mar-a-Lago. We know where it is. 1100 South Ocean Boulevard, Palm Beach, Florida, 33480. A description of the item. An executive grant of clemency regarding Roger Jason Stone Jr. I don't know about you, but I'm happy that the FBI has that back in their custody. I was really nervous that would get out into the wrong hands, but they've got it back. Info about the president of France. I don't know what that is. Leather-bound box of documents. Okay. We've got 2A, various classified, top secret security documents. Potential presidential records we have. 2 binders of photos. And then we've just got a bunch of boxes. Now let's sort of batch these things together. So we've got a handwritten note. Don't know what that is, right? And I've got so many issues with this stuff. It's like, what about executive privilege? What about attorney-client privilege? What about all sorts of other privilege that exists? What did he handwrite on that note? You have a bunch of disgusting FBI agents just rummaging through the president's stuff. Just flipping through papers and envelopes and reading in. And what's this one? Not relevant. What's this one? Not relevant. What's this one? Oh, it's relevant. It's a handwritten note. It's about national security, so we're going to put it in there. And as we talked about yesterday, there's nothing more disgusting than anybody rummaging through your personal private property. It doesn't matter if you're the president. It doesn't matter if it's your car. It doesn't matter if it's your locker in high school. Somebody rummaging through your stuff is a horrendous thing. And they're looking through his notes, looking through binders of photos, boxes labeled A through 1, box labeled A through 12 or A12, right? It could just be a sort of a label. We have A15. We've got 3 boxes right here, items 10, 11A, and 13A, which are miscellaneous secret documents, which have all been seized by the FBI. And then we've got boxes A16, A17, and A18, along with A27, box 14A, miscellaneous confidential documents. So just don't even know what's in there, but a lot of boxes. Same on page 2, same type of thing. So you can see, right, even less distinction between what was seized. Basically, everything on here is labeled A28 through 30, 32, 35, 23, 22, 24. You can see it. I don't need to name them all. We'll sort of go crazy here. But then there's boxes, miscellaneous confidential documents, so just confidential. And then we've got miscellaneous top secret documents. Now, there's a little signature here, or a little, I don't know what that is. Oh, looks like there was a little typo on the search warrant. You see that there? Let's go ahead and erase this most recent circle just so we can see this little typo here. This is, yeah, taupe secret. Looks like one of the FBI agents got a little carried away on the miscellaneous taupe secrets. Yeah, there it is. You can see that, right? Yeah. And so one of the FBI agents, you know, who is really covering all of their bases to make sure that the raid of the president's house was conducted appropriately, forgot to double check. Now, a spell checker wouldn't catch that, right? Is that that's the word taupe, like a color? Miscellaneous taupe secret documents. It's probably very beautiful, nice color, nice peaceful color. It's beautiful, very relaxing. National security secrets. 28A. Now, all of this was received, you can see here, by Christina Bobb. And so Christina Bobb, the attorney, is the printed name. And we heard from her saying, I didn't get a copy of the search warrant. I never got a copy of that at all. And so maybe that's exactly true, right? Maybe she never did get a copy of the search warrant because this is what she got. This is what the copy that she signed. She actually got the receipt for property. And some FBI agent sent that in and said it was the warrant. Everybody's screaming at me in the chat. It's taupe, T-A-U-P-E. I don't care. T-A-U-P-E doesn't fit the narrative that I was trying to craft. It's not as funny, right? If taupe is in the search warrant, it's funnier that way. All right, but that's it. We're at the bottom of the document. Okay, we're at the bottom of this whole thing here. There's nothing else in there. That's the warrant. Much ado about nothing, as we said, right? And if it's a bunch of confidential documents, that's it. Well, unless they tell us more, what are those documents for? What do they want to do with them? Where are those documents going? Well, we don't really know. Now, let's take a final look at the actual court docket that has been detailed out for us. I want to show you there's just been a ton of activity. And let's change this around just a little bit. So we have the most recent on top. Okay, this is the actual case from the search warrant. This is the one that's taking place out of the Southern District of Florida. It is most recently updated today, August 12th. And this is the judge. It's Bruce Reinhart, who is here. And notice, right, a lot of activity here today. And let's just scroll back. The last time we had an update was on August 12th. So look, we're still going all the way down. We've got to work our way up. All right. So as of yesterday, when we had our update, we noticed that there were many people trying to get into this case, including the New York Times. You see the New York Times is here. We had, previous to that, Judicial Watch was filing to get on the case. And there was just sort of a big additional list of people who all filed. So the clerk issued some things. And then today, this morning, you can see right here on August 12th, that was the order granting the motion to unseal. We got that. We already read through all of that. We also have notice by a company called EW Scripps Company who joined the case. We have the Florida Center of Government Accountability is who that association is. And they have a notice of appearance from their lawyer. So some other company filed a notice of appearance. Dow Jones and Company, they filed a notice of appearance. Their lawyer hopped on the case. That's EW Scripps Company. Judicial Watch filed that motion or that notice of Trump's statement that we talked about. Wall Street Journal looks like is trying to get on, along with the Associated Press, or all of these things are all sort of being consolidated. Miami Herald wants to get on. Tampa Bay Times wants to be on here. And the list just goes on and on. Here's the Associated Press. They wanted the search warrant unsealed, so they've got that. CBS Broadcasting is in the house. EW Scripps talked about them. Times Publishing Company, right? Everybody wants in on this case. They know that Donald Trump captures those eyeballs. So they're all getting on the case. Here's CBS again. We've got EW Scripps. A lot of motions from them. Here's CBS News, Washington Post, CNN, NBC News. They're all filing. Palm Beach Post as well. And we talked about this on our morning walk and talk for members that, this is how Trump wins. Every time they make him the center of attention, every time they try to turn him into a clown, he turns them into fools. And it is happening all over again. They don't even realize what they're doing. So this is the latest. We've got orders from additional people appearing pro hoc vice. Lawyers are skidding their cars into this case to try to get on here for all of the different media companies, from all of the different interested parties. And as we said previously, it does seem like the Democrats have bitten off a bit more than they can chew. Donald Trump demanded the search warrant be unsealed. And guess what? It was. Who's really in charge these days, huh? That's Donald Trump and the demand of the search warrant being unsealed, search warrant unsealed. Not a lot of that information there, but it's only the start, right? This is the opening of Pandora's box, and we will continue to follow this wherever it may lead. Now, Donald Trump, now that the warrant has been released, and now that Republicans have had time to digest all of this, we are now hearing from them, and they are angry. Republicans in Congress and around the country are now demanding answers to the Trump raid at Mar-a-Lago. They want to know what happened there, and we're going to go through a compilation of several of them making very pointed statements against the FBI and against the DOJ. And we're also going to see two specific senators and a congressman, Marco Rubio, Senator Rand Paul, and Representative James Comer, who are all outraged by what they saw at Mar-a-Lago during the FBI raid in Florida. And so a lot of people on the left are sort of making fun of many angry Republicans, saying that they're making statements that are akin to violence, that they are sort of fanning the flames of this whole thing. We're going to get to Liz Cheney, and Liz said that she's ashamed of many of her fellow Republicans who are castigating the FBI and that they are diminishing these great American patriots who are fighting on the side of justice. And I just want to play this clip because what I think you're seeing is outrage by the American people. You're seeing the constituents speak to their representatives, and the representatives are now communicating the feelings of their constituents out to the media, and people are outraged. Let's listen in.
The FBI and the Department of Justice are going to give Trump a fair and impartial firing squad.
The DOJ resembles the Gestapo more than a justice-seeking agency, and we are ready for battle.
I think every American should be upset about this. You should never use the Justice Department on a political whim like this.
Do I know that the boxes of material they took from Mar-a-Lago, that they won't put things in those boxes to entrap him?
The weaponizing of the FBI, this should rally all independent thinkers behind the president.
I've had operations run against me by the corrupt FBI. It wouldn't surprise me, let's put it that way, if what this whole thing was about is recovering evidence that would be embarrassing the FBI.
That's 2 for 2, right? That's Senator Rand Paul and Ron Johnson, who are both saying the FBI may actually be so corrupt that they're concerned that they are planting evidence in Trump's documents.
Have to defund and make cuts in the Department of Justice.
We need to have some trust in the FBI. This just destroys that confidence.
They've taken this unprecedented step, weaponizing federal agencies to go after political opponents. You don't use federal agencies to go after people that you disagree with.
Call up Christopher Wray, call up Merrick Garland, bring him in front of the House Judiciary Committee.
I think the Central Department of Justice and the FBI in Washington are a hotbed of corruption and political intrigue.
We need to investigate the DOJ, the FBI, all of it.
They want this spectacle. They want this show. They want the intimidation.
It's like what we thought about the Gestapo and people like that.
The American people see it for what it is. They get it. They know what's going on here, and that's why the outrage is larger than I've ever felt before.
Wow, right? Larger than he's ever felt before. People are outraged. And that was something I was sort of wondering about. I mean, I felt outraged. I know all of you felt outraged. I know large portions of the country did. But you always ask yourself, like, a reality check. Is this really that big of a deal? Like, maybe Merrick Garland can just get up there and just say, yeah, we invaded our political opponent, his house, and we don't need to talk about it to you. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know. Is that, maybe I'm the crazy one. But no, I don't think so. I think the rest of the country is outraged, and they are making their voices heard through their representatives. And it's like so loud that many of these people just can't hide from it anymore, right? A lot of them didn't want to really back Donald Trump after January 6th. Everybody was kind of hoping that he would just sort of whimper out by the wayside and fall into, the sunset. Didn't happen. Everybody's out here full-throated, frothy defense of Donald Trump. Well, here is Senator Rubio, who is somebody who used to be very against Donald Trump, who's recognizing that he is the tip of the spear, that after they go after Donald, he's next. And you can see how concerned he is. He put out this statement today.
You know, an FBI raid looking for supposed classified documents is a ridiculous alibi. Unlike anyone else in the federal government, no president can be guilty of illegally handling classified information because a president has complete and final authority to decide whether something's classified or not. The truth is, this raid wasn't about documents. This raid was about trying to disqualify a likely future election opponent, about trying to intimidate Republicans who oppose the left, and about creating a distraction from Biden's failures and the radicalism of the Democratic Party that he leads.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Guys, it was no coincidence that this happened the day after they passed a bill to hire 87,000 IRS agents. It was no coincidence they did this just 2 days before the new inflation numbers come out this week, because they want the media talking about this raid instead of the fact that we have a cost of living crisis, an open border, a violent crime wave, and that they're hiring a new force of IRS agents larger than the entire British Army. Now look, this may all be shocking to most Americans, but
Wait, is that true? There's more IRS agents than the entire British Army? Is that what he said? What?
People I've lived around my entire life in Miami, they've seen all of this before. You see, many of them came to America fleeing Marxist dictatorships, governments that use the power of the state to criminalize the opposition. And they have long known what many are now learning the hard way. There are no limits to what Marxists are willing to do to hold on to power. And so I pray that we're going to have new majorities in Congress after November with the guts to subpoena all the records of this raid and to haul the people who signed off on this before committees to answer public questions under oath.
Wow. So that is Marco Rubio saying that they're going to haul Merrick, Garland and these people in front of Congress to ask them questions under oath. And my goodness, can you imagine? What if the tides turn? What if Donald Trump wins and that actually comes to fruition? There's a reality there that might cause a lot of the Democrats to be quivering in their little pantalones there. But here is Rand Paul. Rand Paul made a very similar argument to what we heard with Ron Johnson. He was on with Fox and Friends, and he said something like, oh, let me make sure the volume is okay on this one because the volume was a little bit loud on the last, low, and I want to make sure it's, got to protect those eardrums out there. Here is Rand Paul, and he is talking about the FBI. We already know that, you know, well, let me say many Americans are very distrusting of the FBI after a lot of their continual failures for many years. We've covered many of them here. Michael Sussman, the Whitmer kidnapping hoax, the Olympians who reported over to Larry Nassar to the FBI. They botched that one. The list goes on and on. Here is Rand Paul now saying he's going so far as to say FBI agents may have literally planted evidence in Donald Trump's boxes that they were taking out of his house.
No, people distrust so much the government that we've gotten to the point where, for example, do I know that the boxes of material they took from Mar-a-Lago, that they won't put things in those boxes to entrap him? How do we know? Their lawyers weren't allowed to see the boxes go. They weren't categorized.
That's going to be a problem.
Thousands of documents were taken. Yeah, how do we know that they're going to be honest with us about what's actually in the boxes? How do we know that was in the box before it left the residence if the lawyers weren't allowed to see everything? So, you know, they've lost a great deal of trust, and it's...
They have lost a great deal of trust, and what happens then, right? So you had a lot of people questioning 2020 elections. Now what happens if you question the criminal justice prosecution, the entire DOJ, the FBI, huh? What happens if those same 80-something million people who are angry about what happened in 2020 suddenly lose total faith in the FBI, the DOJ, and the executive branch? Well, that's basically what they've caused. They've started all of that. And Rand Paul is saying, you know, can't even trust the agents who were there on the ground. Now, it doesn't just stop there. Rubio and others are demanding answers from the FBI. In fact, we have this letter here from Marco Rubio. He sent this yesterday, 2 days ago, on August 10th. It says, Dear Director Wray, like many Americans, I was outraged to learn of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and their unprecedented raid on Trump's residence in Florida. FBI's actions less than 3 months from the upcoming election are doing more to erode the public trust in government institutions and the electoral process than the Russian Federation or any other foreign adversary. They say these values represent the very core of what the United States stands for, and the FBI is mandated to protect. But the FBI raid sows division and exacerbates the same loss of confidence that Putin does. So then he tells us what we already know. He says, on August 8th, there was a raid. I demand answers, says Rubio. He says, I want to know, during the past 5 years, I want to know how this relates to any disclosure of classified information over the past 5 years. He wants to know, of the referrals made by elements of the intelligence community, what percentage of those resulted in FBI opening preliminary investigations? So Rubio is trying to say, he's trying to do the old compare and contrast. FBI, I want to see how you handled other incidents like this to see if you singled out Donald Trump. So he says next, right, in what percentage of the referrals did the FBI raid the private residence of the individual? So how many issues like this did you have? And of those issues that you had like this, how many of those did you raid their homes? And of the referrals made, what percentage of those referrals resulted in criminal charges? Rubio wants to know. All Americans have a right to know. Therefore, I expect an explanation as to why I and others who are leaders of congressional intelligence committees first learn of this raid on Trump's residence via the media. Despite the law requiring committees be fully and currently informed of all intelligence activities undertaken by the U.S. government, including any significant anticipated intelligence activity. Rubio wants to know, why wasn't I briefed? Law says you've got to brief me. You didn't brief me. You say Trump has documents that implicate national security. Well, guess what? I'm on the National Security Committee in Congress, and I need to know these things. And you haven't given me notice. In addition, I request a meeting to understand the FBI's concerns about the handling of this material, and I want to understand why the FBI did not keep our committees fully informed as they've done before. Signed off on by Marco Rubio. Yeah, he wants to know. He's on the Senate Foreign Intelligence Committee. And if they're saying this has national security implications, why did he not become apprised? The House of Representatives is also very upset about this. And in fact, something like 20 House Republicans signed off on a letter. This one's going over to the National Archives. Her name is Acting Archivist of the United States. Her name is Debbie Steedle Wall. And on August 10th, another letter came out from all of the Republicans here. Look at all of them. James Comer, Jody Heiss, Glenn Grothman, Michael Cloud, Nancy Mace, so on and so forth. Jim Jordan's on the list. We know who he is. Andy Biggs, Arizona, shout out. We've got Paul Fallon, Pat Fallon, Mike Flood. Look at all these people. Now, they're copying some familiar faces here. Jamie Raskin, Ro Khanna, and others on the Oversight and National Security Committees there in Congress. And here's what this letter says. On August 8th, several dozen officials raided the former president's office. FBI executed a search warrant to retrieve documents sought by the National Archives. Committee Republicans here signed on this letter are concerned that NARA would utilize the FBI to gather documents that the president, by the very nature of his constitutional role, could declassify himself. If this was indeed the case, as the media has reported, that could be a problem. The Biden administration is weaponizing the FBI against political rivals. To better understand what happened here, we demand answers. So please, they say, preserve all your documents and preserve all your communications about the execution of that warrant. They tell us the FBI and NARA's actions, apparently, to enforce the Presidential Records Act are so contrary to the customary treatment of former administrations that it begs scrutiny into whether there is a political motivation underlying the raid. According to President Trump, the unannounced raid involved breaking into his safe and stealing 15 boxes from him. NARA's singling out of President Trump's handling of official records stands starkly in contrast to the way NARA has treated far clearer violations committed by politicians who are not Republicans. As has been widely reported for years, for example, writes Mr. Comer, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, quote, did not have a government email address during her 4-year tenure at the State Department, okay? Hillary literally didn't have an email address because she was using @clintonemail.com. So every email for 4 years was not archived. Aides took no actions to have her personal emails preserved as required by the acts, and emails included classified information, but she faced no repercussions, let alone an FBI raid, which demands an explanation for the disparate treatment, the different treatment that Trump received than Hillary. Since Hillary has never been president of the United States, she had much more limited ability to declassify the documents than Trump did. So she had less authority to do that type of crap than he did. And a lot of people are making this argument. They're saying, you know, Rob, Hillary wasn't the president. You say, yeah, she didn't have any rights to do almost anything. Trump did. Trump was the chief executive. Secretary Clinton also deleted over 31,000 emails after receiving a subpoena for them, got a subpoena from the House Select Committee on Benghazi, which was met by the FBI's apathy. Committee Republicans are content to leave Secretary Clinton to her retirement, but the FBI and NARA's behavior towards Trump deserves an explanation. And a lot of people are, you know, critical of these arguments because they say it's just whataboutism. It's just, well, you say, well, what about Hillary? And that's exactly true, right? When you're talking about prosecutions and justice, you do want things to be more or less similar. You do want what's called equal protection of the law. You do want due process and the presumption of innocence and the starting point being the same as best you can. And so when it's the same DOJ investigating sort of both things, you'd expect some uniformity there. Committee Republicans demanded answers about the FBI and NARA's investigation of President Trump and any coordination between the two agencies. The seeming weaponization of the feds by Biden's political rivals cannot go unchecked. And so we have answers that we want, and we have these questions to get those answers. They say, give us these by August 24th. Number one, all documents between employees and agents of NARA and the U.S. government regarding Trump, documents about the possessions that Trump had, documents with judges, magistrate, federal district courts, and all documents related to the presidential transition. Anything related from January 20th onward. They say we want you to preserve all of your emails, exercise reasonable efforts to notify employers, and follow other routine procedures. We have authority and jurisdiction to do all of this. If you have any questions, call us. Signed, James Comer and a bunch of other Republicans, right? All signing off on this and just saying, oh, we want answers here. And that is now going over to the National Archives. So Republicans are outraged. James Comer sending in letters to the National Archives. Senator Marco Rubio sending in letters to the FBI. Senator Rand Paul asking questions. Is the FBI actually planting evidence in Donald Trump's boxes that they seized from his residence? Who knows? But we will continue to follow as this develops, and I appreciate you subscribing to our channel and joining us on that journey. All right, and we've got one final segment, my friends, before we wrap it up for the day, and it's old Liz Cheney here. Liz Cheney is down 30 points in her Wyoming primary, and Adam Kinzinger admits Trump won. We're going to unpack Liz Cheney's final closing argument. The election's right around the corner, and she's got a lot to say. We've been following her, of course, through the J6 committees. Very anti-Donald Trump, but it seems like Donald Trump may emerge victoriously, as both Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney are not a part of the January 6th committee next year, if this election does not go her way. And so first and foremost, after Trump's residence got invaded by the FBI, Liz Cheney, as usual, came out and published a statement that is very Liz Cheney. She said the following. She said, America, I have been ashamed to hear members of my party, like the many Republicans we just listened to, attacking the integrity of the FBI agents involved with the recent Mar-a-Lago search. These are sickening comments that put the lives of patriotic public servants at risk. All right, so, well, I think the FBI has done enough to attack its own credibility throughout many different stories that we've covered, but that is Liz Cheney, and so her statement is pretty typical. Now, something interesting happened as she came out. You know, the Wyoming primary is right around the corner, and she published this statement on YouTube, and here it is. We're going to listen to just a little bit of it.
As election day...
Hold on. This is our closing argument from Liz Cheney, and I know it's Friday. Hopefully, it's a Friday thing. Hopefully, you've got, you know, your cocktail or whatever you need to do to suffer through. We'll do like 30 seconds of it just to get a taste. And then we're going to listen to the actual Wyoming voters. CNN went around Wyoming, and I was just there in Jackson Hole. It's a beautiful country, beautiful, beautiful place. And they asked actual Wyoming people, what do you think of Liz Cheney? So here is her great, she calls it the Great Task. This is her memoir, I guess, final video before you go vote out there. Here she is. Kay Bean's in the chat and says, my goodness, she is one handsome man.
Years, I want to talk to citizens across our great state and all across our country.
Tell us, Liz.
America cannot remain free if we abandon the truth. The lie that the 2020 presidential election was stolen is insidious. It preys on those who love their country. It is a door Donald Trump opened to manipulate Americans to abandon their principles, to sacrifice their freedom, to justify violence, to ignore the rulings of our courts and the rule of law. This is Donald Trump's legacy.
You hear that music?
It cannot be the future of our nation. History has shown us over and over again how these types of poisonous lies destroy free nations. Like many candidates across this country, my opponents in Wyoming have said that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. No one who understands our nation's laws, no one with an honest, honorable, genuine commitment to our Constitution would say that.
All right,
That
enough.
Threatens our great republic.
He's a cancer that threatens our great republic. Okay, so you get the gist of it. How long? We made it 1 minute and 2 seconds. Pat yourselves on the back. We went over 1 minute, 60 seconds on that. Woo! All right, so let's catch our breaths and sort of get back to business. Okay, so that's Liz Cheney. Now, a bunch of Wyoming people are sitting there. They're going, oh gosh, we're doomed. But fortunately, you're not doomed. You have a very interesting candidate. Her name is Harriet Hageman. We'll listen to her response to a lot of this in a minute. But before we do have to take a look and see what actual Wyoming voters think of old Liz Cheney. CNN, they hit the airwaves out there, and this is what they found when they were sort of doing a man on the street little segment. They wanted to see what people had to say about her.
Cheney for a
That's very loud. Let's turn that down.
fourth term. Are you planning to vote for Liz Cheney?
Can I cuss? Hell no.
Are you planning to support Liz Cheney?
Absolutely not.
What are your thoughts about Liz Cheney running for a fourth term?
Personally, I think she's had three too many.
Keep in mind, in 2020, Donald Trump won about 70% of the vote in Wyoming. So Liz Cheney's work on the January 6th investigation isn't playing so well with many Wyoming voters.
She's done us dirty.
How so?
Oh, God. Look at how she's done Trump.
Yes.
I'm a Trump fan. I'm sorry.
So she lost your vote because of her role on the January 6th committee and what she's doing about Trump?
Yes. She's supposed to be supporting him. She's a Republican, for crying out loud.
I find her work on the January 6th committee just repulsive.
How do you feel about her work on the January 6th committee and her role?
It's all a hoax. It's all propaganda. Has nothing to do with anything. It's a witch hunt.
Well, she says she's defending what's important to people here in Wyoming, upholding the rule of law, defending the Constitution.
If that was the rule of law, why doesn't he have a defense team in that courtroom?
Very good question.
The rule of law.
Very good question. Where's the adversarial proceeding taking place? It isn't.
That's a kangaroo court. That's not the Wyoming way.
She has been an embarrassment. It's a witch hunt.
Are you proud of her for taking on Donald Trump?
No.
No, they're not proud. Enough. All right, so that's CNN. Now, this woman, I don't know if this woman is just outstanding.
How she's done Trump. I'm a Trump fan. I'm sorry.
So she lost your vote because of her role on the January 6th committee and what she's doing about Trump?
Yes. She's supposed to be supporting him. She's a Republican, for crying out loud.
She done us dirty. And, you don't have to be sorry about that, young lady there. You don't have to be sorry at all. Just be proud. Say it loud from the rooftops. Now, here is Harriet Hageman, and good news for Wyoming. She is winning in the polls. This came out from WashingtonTimes.com. You can see August 11th. Sort of recent numbers we see here. Cheney trails the Trump-backed Republican challenger by nearly 30 points in the new poll. Here it is. Cheney's down by nearly 30 points. University of Wyoming came out, said on Tuesday, she's got a primary next week. 57% support Trump-endorsed Harriet Hageman versus 28% who backed Cheney, 10% undecided. So even if all 10% go over to Liz, not going to happen. The race for the Republican nomination appears to be a referendum on Cheney, as it often is. And you can see, right, just not working out well for her, which is not bad news for America. Here is Harriet Hageman. She came out. Here's what she had to say about all of this. And this is her campaign ad.
Republican Liz Cheney.
There's been an awful lot of noise this election, candidates attacking each other.
making things up, desperate for attention. Liz Cheney, she's made her time in Congress and this election all about her. Well, it's not about her. It's about you. Wyoming deserves a voice in Congress to fight for our values, our way of life. I'm Harriet Hageman. I approve this message because I want to fight for you.
All right, Harriet Hageman, you know where to go donate and vote for her. All right, and so now that all of this has sort of come to fruition, what do we have now? Finally, an acknowledgement from our friend Adam Kinzinger, who likes to cry. He's on the January 6th Select Committee, and he came out and he made this very interesting acknowledgement. And this was beautifully clipped by this gentleman here. His name is Mark Vargas. And apparently this is an exclusive interview with WGN News, a reporter, somebody by the name of Ben Bradley, over at WGN News. He's an anchor. He asks Representative Adam Kinzinger, as you can see here, right? He is on the J6 committee. He says, when you leave Congress here in a few months, Adam, in the Trump versus Kinzinger war, has Trump won? Kinzinger says the following. Now, this is a fast clip. This is just great. You're going to have to listen to the audio because they don't cut to Adam in the first part of it. But here's what he finally acknowledges.
But when you leave Congress here in just a few months, in the Trump versus Kinzinger war, has Trump won?
Yes. Yeah, he won.
But when you
Did you hear that? Now, they don't even show his face, but just listen to that sound. Actually, let's pull it up on this video because this is why Twitter video's just not any good. Here it is. Let's listen to that last little bit.
Yeah, he won.
He laughs. Listen.
Has Trump won?
Yes. Yeah, he won.
Did you hear that little? He goes, oh, yes. yeah, he won. He won big time, baby.
War. Has Trump won?
Yes. Yeah, he won.
Yeah, he won. Now, apparently he goes on to say, after the fact that for now, he won for now. And they're going to, I guess, stand on American democracy and regain power and eliminate Trump later or something. I don't even think they have any idea what they're doing, but that is Liz Cheney. She is down 30 points in the poll. Adam Kinzinger is now admitting Trump won. And we'll continue to follow that. Thank you for subscribing before you leave and for joining us on this journey. And now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. We covered a lot of ground today. My goodness, we zoom out on this puppy. Look at everything we hit today. We got Trump demanding the release of the warrant being released. We've got Republicans angry as heck. They're responding. We got Liz Cheney's down in the polls and realignments taking place all around America. And now we've got to see what you have to say about it. And so we had a tremendous amount of people on the live stream today. Welcome, everybody. My name is Robert Gouveia. If you don't know me, I'm a criminal defense lawyer in Scottsdale, Arizona. We do this show every day. I would love it if you subscribed and joined us on the show every day. It's about 4 p.m. Arizona time, Pacific, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And we've been covering this Trump saga for years now. And so we're going to continue to do it. We'd love to have you here. But we're going to jump into some super chats, and we're going to take questions from our community over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And we had a couple super chats come in on Locals. Look at this one here. John McGarvey says, be outraged, but be smart. Don't give them another J6 event to use against you. Bonnie Speck says, what penny candy costs nowadays is just a $1 tip. And we had, I think that was it over on Locals, and they're chatting away over there. We've got our Locals community with some of the super chats. Our Locals community comments. We have John McGarvey says, hey, Rob, is Mar-a-Lago a nuclear power? I mean, it could have been. I guess maybe it was. Maybe it was until they took those documents out. These are over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Former LEO says, big boy, those recordings are out. Hang on a second. I think I hear some audio going on somewhere. So let me close up some of these before we jump into anything. There it is. All right. It says, the FBI at this time has no legal jurisdiction over the surveillance tapes, says former LEO. If former POTUS decides to release a portion of their tapes, I hope that it's edited in the same way the Inquisition was edited. I would slice and dice that video in the worst way possible. Maybe even hire the same film editors as the Inquisition. So former LEO is saying, if this were something where he were in charge, he would release and edit the Mar-a-Lago surveillance videos in a way that would serve Donald Trump. TOS Forever says, phenomenal Friday, everybody. Dr. New is here. He says, breaking. Elon Musk has offered to buy the FBI for $100 billion. No word yet from the Clintons if they're willing to sell. Hey-yo! Friday night. Nicely done there, Dr. New. Dr. New is in the house. Hilarious. Yeah, I wonder, that sounds expensive. Maybe like, 15 grand by the FBI. Here's another one from Kenny 1B says, none of the laws cited in the search warrant refer to anything. POTUS is the ultimate declassification authority, and so he is sort of above most of this. Happy Old Cat Lady says, off topic, new vanity plate in Florida. Trump gets the first one. Don't tread on me. Vianticus says, happy Friday. Vianticus also shared this meme. This is just a meme. This is not real. Okay, this is the judge. This is JE. This is GM, right? They are all, this is a real photo. This top photo is real. The bottom photo is not real. That is the judge, though, and that was pulled off his Facebook account, and a lot of people are sort of having fun with that one. Let's see what came in over on YouTube. We had some super chats come in from all of you. Thank you very much. And there's a lot of activity today. Thank you to the mods who modded down the fort for us. A+ Computer Service says the next ploy will be the elimination of DJT. I hope that is not true at all. But thank you for that, A+ Computer Services. Marcel says Rob needs to hit the let's go live button already. Come on, man. This is not a joke. Not a joke, folks. Stay salty. From Marcel, we will. We all will stay salty, I'm sure of it. Freedom Forever has become a member. Welcome to Freedom Forever, and that's awesome. We have our morning walk and talks that we do every morning, usually except Sundays, that you'll get now that you're a member. Base Shaman says, can POTUS reorganize the DOJ and essentially abolish the FBI? I think it was, he could seriously undermine it, right? I don't know if he could like unilaterally abolish it with an executive order, but yeah, he's the enforcement. He's the chief enforcement officer of the law in the country. So if he doesn't want to enforce things, I think that's perfectly within his constitutional freedom to do it. Thank you, Based Shaman. Mark Pate is here, says, no need to mention me. Love what you do and love to catch you live. I work a lot of hours and miss most of it, but I get the recaps when I can. Thank you for the great work. Well, thank you, Mark. It's a generous donation, and I do appreciate it. So, of course, I'm going to mention you. Thank you for being here and for working those hard hours, doing whatever it is you do. Work is a gift. Barasark Slain says, I thoroughly enjoy the bit of levity you bring to these discussions. It can be a bit heavy at times, and you really do help with that. That's why I kind of do. I know these topics can be heavy and dreary and very deflating. And so we got to have some fun with it, because really, when we walk outside most of the time, when we call our moms, when we spend time with our friends and family, things are mostly pretty good, right? And so we can have a lot of a doom and gloom out there in the world, but I'm an optimist. I really think that these people are identifying themselves. They're making themselves known. We know who they are. And there's goodness to that. There's a silver lining in all of that. Clay Bourne with the super chat. Thank you, Clay. Matt Hills, Scales Models, says, watching from Tasmania, Australia. Shout out to Australia. Always weirds me out. It's just incredible. How is this working? On the other side of the planet. It's outstanding. Says, Trump has been set up again. America needs to rid the White House of corruption under this administration. God bless. God bless you, and shout out to my friends in Australia. John McGarvey says, hit that like button and fight the algorithm. Yeah, I would love it if you hit that like button. We do, normally we don't get as many live viewers as we got tonight. So something must have happened. I think that, probably a lot of people are avoiding some of the Trump talk because YouTube doesn't like it. I don't know if anybody else is talking. I don't know what it is, but I'm grateful that you're here because it is important stuff. Thank you, John. Metalhead Fishman, super chat, but no question on that. Matt Hill says, hey, Robert, rid, not ride, damn autocorrect. I got it. I read it. I caught it. Rob autocorrect caught it. Da Freak says, anything they grabbed illegal, not on the warrant. Yeah, right, technically, but the warrant was so broad that I think you'd have a hard time making an argument against that. Or, right, an illegal warrant that is overbroad, the remedy for something like that is typically the overbroad evidence is excluded. Right? Not that the whole warrant is thrown out, just that the overbroad evidence, like if they were supposed to look in that room and they looked in that room is excluded, but this room isn't. So that would be the remedy on that. Here, another one. Tomorrow says, is Trump a journalist with Truth Social? Can he publish top secret stuff leaked to him? That's a good question. I don't know. So Trump could be a president and a journalist. And so he can release stuff to himself and publish it as a journalist under the color of law because he is protected by the First Amendment. He can leak to himself. I don't think you can do that, but I like this. I like the thinking. Hilarious. All right. So B. Hanran says impeach Garland and impeach Wray. And so we'll pause right there and do a refresh over on locals and come on back here and see what we've got while this is refreshing. Oh my, what are you doing, locals? I think I clicked the wrong button. So that's my bad. And we're going to wait for it to reboot and scroll all the way down here. Okay. Now we're here. This one is coming in hot from TOS Forever, Dr. No. We got Kenny 1B. Tessa Michelle says, Rob, the FBI raid was a little shot across the bow of their sinking ships to all candidates Trump has endorsed because this is what the Democrats' galley slaves see coming. I don't even know what that is exactly. Looks like a ship that is shooting something from the rooftops or some. I don't know what that is, but doesn't look good. Jeremy is here. JC the Music Man. He says the Nixon Library did not release the final batch of secret tapes until 39 years after office. LBJ delayed the releasing of his tapes until 47 years after he left office. Looks like that came in from Ted Cruz. And so Ted Cruz is now joining the fray, right? He's saying that, yep, everything is just being taken out. It's a political prosecution, essentially, through and through. Thank you, Jeremy. MSW20, Savvy Sue says, is there a RICO case involving Hillary and the president? Yeah, I believe there is. I don't know if it's a RICO case, but there is. There is Trump versus Hillary. Just hearing some chatter saying it might be related to the raid, but there's so much noise. What you're probably seeing, Savvy Sue, is the judge in this case, Reinhart, recused himself from Trump v. Clinton for some reason, conflict of interest. Okay, that is real. Like, that is a real thing. But he didn't recuse himself from granting the search warrant against Donald Trump. So why is that? Don't really know. Larry One says, still great, Rob. Thanks. That's over on Rumble. I saw that one come in. And I think there was another Rumble earlier. Glassitch says, I'm a salty guy on Fridays. Tonight requires a mind of a lawyer. We'll try to figure out a drinking game as we go along. Yeah, I'm sure I have some filler words that probably get you hammered. Davney says, go to President Trump, save America for a contribution. That's from Davney on our Rumble. We got some good activity over on Rumble, too. Shout out to all my Rumbles. Amazing. We've got Tyann Fowler, Anything's in the house, next to 2020. Zillow won the pillow. Man S69. A lot of activity over there. Shout out to all my friends over there. Here, we've got Kenny Cole says, this is going to get them in trouble. People here in America hate when things aren't fair, particularly when powerful interests take everything for themselves and leave the rest of us to piddle around for the leftovers. Trump was a great president, but he was a better martyr. DeSantis will run, win, pardon Trump, and I think that's at least a backup strategy from Kenny Cole. Interesting. Viantica says, people are still going on with this thing about flushing documents down the toilet. How stupid are they? I'm supposed to believe a shady businessman like Trump wouldn't already be in the habit of shredding and burning documents. Give me a break. Saying the toilet thing is just a red herring. You burn stuff and incinerate it. Former LEO says, the Trump org should ship those surveillance videos out of the country so everybody can see them, keep them out of the hands of the FBI. I think that it would be poetic justice if Trump contacted his best friend Putin, shipped the videos over there for safekeeping. As a side note, was Ray Epps involved in the preparation of service of the search warrant? Might have been him or his special agent brother, Roy, who is going to be director of the FBI probably. Former LEO says, I think you skipped over the search warrant that was served and executed in June of 2022 in which additional seizures occurred. That's true, right? I didn't talk about it, but that is true. Viantica says, taupe secret is when you hide your top secret documents in a topiary. Yeah, I don't know what... It's certainly not top, though. I don't know what you do with the taupe or what a taupe is specifically. But Three Girlies is here. Shout out to the youngest girlie. Says, for this being supposedly narrowly focused, according to Garland, why does it cover June 2017 to 2021? Literally Trump's whole presidency. It doesn't seem very narrowly focused. You're right, Heather. It doesn't. It's Jake from Oxford. He says, oh, Rob. Now, Jake from Oxford is the NSA. He's the National Security Advisor for the Biden administration. Way smarter than all of us. Unless you're in this audience and you too went to Oxford, we're all outclassed. Okay, so just deal with it. Here he is. He says, oh, Rob, I wish I could send you videos. My servant, see, I told you how smart he is losing his mind just like you guys are. He's complaining and saying, quote, can you imagine the FBI going through your wife's closet, looking for nuclear codes and weapons, and this is the first lady? He is very upset. It's so cute, Jake says. He's laughing at his servant, which I guess you learned in Oxford, he says. But going back to something you've said many times before, which is why would Trump release this on a Friday? Because he wants you to have all weekend for this to blow over. Trump released this at what, 4 p.m. on a Friday? Of course he did. How ridiculous he did not wait till Monday. Well, Jake, Jake always has interesting contrarian takes on this, and sometimes we learn things, and sometimes, we have to be educated by somebody who has a much higher IQ. So thank you, Jake, for educating us. Jason is here. He says, sorry, was running errands, getting my hair did, but he's going to watch tonight. Well, thank you for that. That's really good to know, Jason. I hope your hair turned out great. I hope, sometimes they don't always turn out great. Sometimes, you go, oh, gosh. Yeah, it's fine. Actually, my Sergio is right around the corner. He's outstanding. Shout out to Sergio. We got Vienticus. He says, by the way, while the core Bantic back and forth. Vantic, why are you using Oxford words here? Okay, I don't know what that means. Corey Bantic back and forth dominates the discourse in America. Israel has been bombing Damascus again. I wonder if there's some relation there because local domestic issues have never been generated to distract from foreign ones or anything. That's another good point, V. Wag the dog little situation going on. Corey Bantic, what a great word. All right, we might as well just take a look at that word. I mean, how can you just gloss over that? I can't do that, obviously. So let's see what this word says. Okay, wild and frenzied. It's our Friday word of the day. Wild and frenzied. Corey Bantic. Let's listen.
Corabantic.
Oh, Corabantic.
Corabantic.
Corabantic. Say it out loud. Say it. Turn to your partner next to you and say.
Corabantic.
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 Corabantic. Okay. Wild and frenzied. Rock and rolls. Corabantic gyrations. What kind of word is this? Rock and rolls, Corabantic gyrations. Oh, gosh. All right. Well, we're going to have to start a whole show maybe talking that way. Outstanding. All right. Thank you, V. We have another one from Thunder7. He says the buck stops at the Biden administration, who must have approved and even initiated the illegal raid. It's not that the FBI that we should be angry at. It's the Democratic machine, the judge who's an Obama supporter and Trump hater. They all need to be indicted. FBI agents don't have the power to refuse orders from the DOJ. They didn't have authority to enter in there. And all of this blame needs to be placed right on Biden and Garland's shoulders. So thank you, Thunder7. We'll see if that happens. Thunder also says, if NARA believed there were classified nuclear docs, why didn't they move on them in June? They had docs examined, and as you pointed out, they requested an extra lock, which Trump complied with. Chief Archivist David Ferrero, the informant, told the FBI agents where to search, including in Melania's panty drawer. He's another Democrat operative who helped cover for Clinton's emails. Had back and forth communications with Grassley all the way back to 2015. Is Ferriero listed in the affidavit? This entire thing is another Russia hoax. MAGA King winning again. Thank you, Thunder7. Words Mean Things is here. He says, hey, watchers, I came in late because I was meeting my new grandson. Oh, my goodness. It's so good to have an update. Words Mean Things was here yesterday, and his, I believe, son and daughter-in-law, or do I have those reversed? I think it's son and daughter-in-law, having their first baby and his first grandson. And it's a grandson. We didn't know of the sex yesterday, but we do now. Happy, congratulatory welcome to the new family member to the Words Mean Things family. And yesterday I got a little bit nervous and a little panicky when I heard that daughter-in-law was in labor. Glad it worked out well. Okay, so good news. All right. I'll sleep a little better tonight. Thank you for that, Words Mean Things. Shout out to the newest grandson and the Words Mean Things family. Oh, wait, grandma. Yeah, so it's a female. I'm going to be a grandma. So shout out to the newest grandma. We say here, I've been listening to the live stream on Double Time just for grins and giggles. Go back and watch that compilation of elected officials denouncing Trump on Double Time. Yikes, it'll blow your hair back. We've done that before. Sometimes I record things on double time. Here we had 2 Rumble rants put in here by Vientikis, which I think we got. He says, Glassitch, I'm salty on Fridays, guys. Tonight requires the mind of a lawyer. We'll figure out a drinking game. And Davney says, go to President Trump, save America for a contribution. Thank you, V. Kenny1B says, refresh the comments thread. You skipped over my nuanced description of the classification laws that took me the whole hour to write. Well, Kenny, look, I appreciate, I'm sorry it took you a whole hour, but I generally don't read gigantic comments like that. But I don't think I skipped it. Did I get it? I'm going to look back in a minute. Let me do a refresh. Kenny1B, John Delar says, I just can't believe how arrogant Democrats are. They think everyone is stupid if they put Trump in jail and win this war. I'm rooting for China and Russia. I hope they rot. Jeremy says, Rob, you created a new meme in my head. It has Trump riding the White House like it's a bucking bronco. He's also holding a red MAGA hat. Thank you, JC. That sounds like a funny meme. All right, I'm going to go back and find Kenny1B's. I did skip. Yeah, Kenny, look. I don't want to read all of this. So here, this is all case law type stuff. So I skip over that when it's a bunch of numbers because it's hard to read a bunch of numbers, right? So just if you're commenting, like this is for you, but very important nuances. None of the laws in the search warrant refute a nuclear weapons information protected according to atomic energy in accordance with national security referred to in said authority. POTUS is the ultimate. I read this part. He's the ultimate declassification authority for classified information other than that categorically specified in atomic energy. You actually, reference this there. So you're quoting that refers to persons without authority. The person who ultimately determines the authority is the president himself. Note the search warrant does not cite 18 U.S. Code. To convict an individual as cited, the government must prove intent to injure in the United States or use the classified information to aid a foreign country. Yeah, it's great. It's a great point. But I don't know at all if they're prognosticating criminal charges or what they're doing. So this is great analysis, Kenny1B. I'm not doubting that, but we don't even have a jumping off point. So, the way that this typically works is you start out with criminal charges and then you see what the elements of the offense are. We don't have any elements of the offense. We don't even know what the charges are. So, yes, this is great. You're looking at U.S. code and you're prognosticating what could possibly be a violation and how this all works and what the elements are. But until there are elements, until we know what the code is, what the violation is, we're all just speculating. Excellent work, Kenny B. Thank you for typing that up. Now, please, if you are in the locals community, go read that because there's a lot of goodness there. And you can take a look at those U.S. codes. And I'll tell you this, Kenny. If he does get charged and it is one of those violations, then all of that will be ultra relevant because then you'll be able to match them up together and see specifically where the gaps are, right? This is what defense attorneys do. They identify the elements and they poke out one element. They poke holes in one element and they make the argument that it is not meeting the elements and therefore it must be dismissed. All right. So Kenny, we got that one. Thank you, Kenny, for that one. Here's this one, John Delar. We've got that one. JC and Jeff Rook says, here's an 80s, 90s kid living through another historically significant event. This is a historically significant event. We were reading through the motion to unseal the search warrant yesterday from the DOJ, and we said that. We said, they're going to be reading this in law school for years. Thunder says, Rob, I want to point out the FBI are the #1 authority on serial killers and so on. Police forces all across the world attend their seminars. Majority of agents are good, honest, hardworking people. There were 2 agents killed on duty a couple of years back. We have to remember that not all police are racist, trigger-happy zombies, and not all FBI agents are corrupt. I agree with that. But until they acknowledge that they have some problems, they're all corrupt, right? If they're all going to sit there every day, minute after minute, and shove down our gullets that there are no problems at the FBI and that every single person there is a hardworking patriot, I'm not buying it anymore. We've covered all the cases. They don't get to use that same facade that has been working with them since the 1950s. Doesn't work. They have a pattern of corruption. And so that's the new default. Sorry. Tweak says, listen to what Hillary had to say about Uranium One when she was investigating herself in 2017.
But Hillary Clinton.
Oh, this is a long one. So Tweak. All right, so check this one out. This is 7 minutes. Tweak posted about it over on YouTube. So go check that out on our locals community. C. Reed says, watch the shiny thing and don't look at this. Let's see what this one is. says, oh, the Netherlands. Farming food revolution has begun. So we've got another convoy to talk about. And yeah, what they're doing in the farms, I told you, I met with Eddie, my boy from Texas. He stopped by the office this week, and we talked about what's happening in Texas and the food supplies and all sorts of major problems. So it sounds like that's just another catastrophe waiting to happen. Jeff Rook is here. He says, I'm behind the live stream. A white pill I posted on Locals. I said this: they can't win. They can certainly harm us, and we should prepare ourselves to fend off these attacks, but they want a level of control that I believe is impossible in reality. Reality requires balance. Viruses burn themselves out. Empires rise and fall. Machines eventually break down no matter how well you maintain them. They're trying to put an authoritarian Band-Aid on freedom, which they see as a wound on the body of their imagined national world order. As long as we don't let them warp our hearts and minds, even if they made no effort to oppose them, even if we made no effort to oppose them, they'd still fail. We have many years of sunshine and smiles after we get through this mess they're pushing. Just finished typing and realized how much I rely on metaphors to communicate. Hee hee. Yeah, I do the same thing too. You can tell I use metaphors, analogies here all the time. I do think that they're useful. And I actually agree with you on this one, right? There's something called the Lindy Law. And the Lindy Law talks about, things that were around for a long time will probably continue to be around for a long time. And things that have not been around for a long time probably are not going to be around for a long time, right? And freedom has been around for a long time, right? People have always wanted freedom. It's always been this innate urge. And there's also always been, authoritarians and dictators and people who want that too. But their systems have risen and fallen and risen and fallen and risen and fallen, and freedom prevails basically every time. And so, a lot of this conversation might be about whether a new type of technology like AI or computers or something will be able to capture enough freedom so that people don't get outside of the bubbles. But I'm not so sure that that's going to happen ultimately for the same reason, right? These are cages, authoritarian cages for the human spirit. And we don't want to be caged. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Here is the Lindy Law. It describes an antithetical behavior in which the likelihood of failure decreases with age. In other words, Lindy Law means growing young and anti-aging. Aging applies to physical objects in the real world. Anti-aging, that's kind of a different. I don't really like that definition. Let me see if I can find something better. The concept is sort of the idea, the Lindy here. So this is what I'm talking about. The Lindy effect is theorized as a phenomenon by which future life expectancy of some non-perishable things like a technology is proportional to their current age. So like, for example, the Bible has been around for thousands of years. Pick a number, so let's say 2. 2,000 years. It's been around for 2,000 years. Probably going to be around for another 2,000 years, right? My book is called Beginning to Winning: How to Fight Your Case and Succeed in the Criminal Justice System. Only been around for about 2 years, right? Might be around for another 2 years, maybe, right? I'll probably rewrite it or change it a bunch of stuff, right? It hasn't been around for that long. So something that has been around for 2,000 years, time acts as a filter and means that thing is important. It's probably going to stay around for a long period of time. Authoritarian dictatorships, right? They tend to be short-lived, kind of little blips in history. They come and go. They don't have lasting effect. Whereas the desire for freedom certainly has, right? That has been around forever. Very good comment there from Jeff Rook. Jumping back over to YouTube, we have some additional comments that came in. And this one from Seth Covington says, I can't wait for Trump to officially announce he's running Make America Great Again. That's wait until that happens, right? It's going to be a whole new thing, isn't it? We had Aussie Lawyer with the super chat. Shout out to my Aussie Lawyer. We have Salty Granny says MTG put in articles of impeachment on the Attorney General. You're kidding me. Remember we had an impeachment party when they impeached Donald Trump the first time, and we drafted articles of impeachment for Kamala Harris and everybody else. It's really easy to do. So that's great. We'll have to take a look at those documents. I'm sure we'll pull those. Matt Hills Scales Models says taupe is like, the thing. Like, come on, man. Words don't even matter at all. All right. If I say that taupe is spelled T-O-P-E, that's just my reality. And how dare you disagree with me? You spellists, you. Aussie Lawyer says, if Trump has unlawfully retained classified docs and has refused to return, what's wrong with the search warrant, leaving aside confirmation bias? If Trump has unlawfully retained classified, well, Well, I think that's the problem, right? Is like there's debate over that. Does he have the ability to declassify? Marco Rubio came out and said by virtue of the fact that he's the president means it's declassified, right? So, it's Aussie lawyer. You know how this goes. It depends. That's the answer that you give to every single law school question. It depends, right? But I get, in my perspective, the Justice Department broke precedent on this. They did something that they have to justify, not the other way around. They are the prosecuting agency, and we have the presumption of innocence here. And that means that the defendant, the person who's under the subject of a potential government investigation, they don't have to do anything. The government has to justify their actions, and they don't get to hide behind this ethical conflict when it's their political enemy. Good to see you, Aussie lawyer. Naples Live Music is here with a super chat. Shout out to Naples Live Music. Jeff Pearson says, several sources reported the documents included unredacted docs exposing FBI agents. Ooh. Yeah, that might explain why they have a vested interest in getting those documents back. I don't know anything about that, but that would be curious. Oil Smoke Jones says, we are 1993 Germany, Reichstag fire, Kristallnacht, and ever-broadening persecution of political enemies. But what you going to do? Join the Nazis? Don't think so. Good comment there from Oil Smoke Jones. No, never join the Nazis. Nelson Ray says, as a 32-year veteran of law enforcement, I'm appalled by the actions of my community that go directly against our oath to support, protect, and defend the Constitution. You have a great channel. Keep up the great work. Well, that's very nice of you, Nelson. And I appreciate your service as a law enforcement officer. Like I said, we need good law enforcement officers, good FBI agents. We have some amazing law enforcement officers, former officers, and current, and prosecutors, and judges who check out the show, and I'm grateful to have you here. We need you guys now more than ever. Penny, you're a penny for your podcast says, man, Rob, I'm outraged. I'm outraged. A lot of people are. I don't disagree with that feeling. Walker Voss says, where in hell is John Durham? We're probably due up, actually, for a John Durham I think he filed a notice of appearance in the what's the deal? Igor Danchenko case, I think, is the one that he appeared on. And so we may do a check on that one. Now, here is K. Bean says, Rob, what exactly was the probable cause? Well, we don't know because we don't have the affidavit. We can't see it. I don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. National security documents, illegal documents, right? I mean, it's like a shoplifting charge, or it's like a, I don't know, like embezzlement. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of like a common law analog or something, it's like a conversion type of a tort type of a thing, which is the worst. Orange Grove says, if they issue an arrest warrant for Trump, how long do those federal warrants usually take to get served? Days? Thanks for all you do. Instantly. I mean, really, signed off on the warrant. If they sign an arrest warrant, they don't have to serve Trump. They just go arrest him, right? They just go get him. So immediately, they don't have to wait. Judge orders it, send it off. They could call, oh, is he in New York? Okay, send this to the New York police. Send it over to them. They go execute the warrant. And they make the arrest. So basically instantly. Beth Coddington in the house. Shout out to Beth. Says, hi, Sweetums and everyone. Keep on fighting. I'm redefining fight from to attempt to harm or gain power over an adversary by blows or weapons to, quote, successfully retaking power by Trump slapping snowflakes with facts and mean tweets. Beth, you are free to define this world however you want to. They're defining mothers and inflation and all sorts of things. Insurrection, the list goes on and on. Fighting means successfully retaking powers with Donald Trump given a nice little peaceful political backslap with some facts and some mean tweets. I'm looking forward to it too. It's not going to be tweets. It'll be True Social. And there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on True Social. I'm over there under my name. Shout out. And shout out to Beth Coddington. Beth, I love that you're here. Good to see you again. Hope you're having an amazing week and an amazing weekend. We have reference says, do you really believe Republicans will grow a spine over this? Ray was before the Senate just a week ago, and the supposedly angry Republicans were pathetic pushovers. That's true. It's all performative opposition. It might be, right? It really might be. But if these people, like to see Marco and Rand and all these people really circle the wagons around Trump, it's kind of a pretty surprising thing. So if there's enough groundswell, like if there's enough support from Donald Trump supporters, they may not have a choice but to support Trump and do something about it. But yeah, I mean, generally, you know, yeah, I saw that. Chuck Grassley, Christopher Wray came in and he said, are we done, you loser senators? I've got a plane to catch. And they said, yeah, you can leave. Thanks for being here. Cubis Ima says 100 pesos. Great job, Rob, and go Trump. Shout out to the pesos from our friend in Mexico. Oh, that's great. 100 pesos. Thank you for that, Cubis Imas. I appreciate it. Very grateful for that. And a couple others from locals. I just did a refresh, and let's see what else came in. 3 Girlie says, youngest girlie texted me from Pennsylvania and asked if you had been shouting her out all week. So I told her yes, that you have, and she sent back, yay. We always shout out the youngest girlie over at the 3 Girlies household. Shout out to all of the girlies and, of course, the youngest girlies. Tweak says, I timestamped the link in the video so you can just click play. It'll start at the right time, and it's short. I thought I clicked it, didn't I? Okay, here.
But Hillary Clinton wants you to think this scandal, it's much to do about nothing. Take a look at this.
All right, here she is.
The Uranium One story has been debunked countless times by members of the press, by independent experts. It is nothing but a false charge that the Trump administration is trying to drum up. This is such an abuse of power.
Oh.
And it goes right at the rule of law. If they send a signal that we're going to be like some dictatorship, some authoritarian regime where political opponents are going to be unfairly, fraudulently investigated, that rips at the fabric of the contract we have that we can trust our justice system.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, Hillary's making the point that, yeah, it's very, very inappropriate to, investigate your political enemies. So I wonder if they have a statement from her on this. Actually, she's selling hats now, right? Isn't she very excited about all of this? Thank you, Tweak, for the connection on that one. Kenny B says, thank you. I really like getting into the technical nuances. You did a great job on it, Kenny 1B. I do too, to be fair. I really do like the technical stuff, but I try to, sort of save that for when it's 100% applicable. There's some situations where it's just speculation, and there's so much else to talk about. But you're right. You're right on the money. This is how they have to justify it. They've got to justify the elements of the charges, and they haven't done that yet. And if they're just going to say it's just a return of property, well, that's not enough. Thunder7 says, Rob, don't forget the FBI whistleblowers. It's not easy to come out and criticize your own agency because of the political hacks in the upper echelons. That is true. You are right about that too, Thunder7. No doubt about it. It is an institution that can serve goodness and can serve good things, but unfortunately they have seemed to become ultra political in a way that might be beyond repair. I mean, things are getting worse, right? Things are not getting better. Everything seems to be escalating. We had one final one come in from Barbara Davino, and with no question, but thank you very much, Barbara. Very generous of you. As we wrap up the show, I appreciate all of the amazing super chats, all of your tremendous support. We did cover a lot of ground here today. As we talked about, Donald Trump, the search warrant was released, judge unsealing it. Republicans very angry about this. We'll see if they have any stones at all. And Liz Cheney, probably going down starting on Tuesday next week, going to be gone. Good riddance to Liz. And I want to thank everybody who was a part of this show over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. This is our community. I post morning videos and walk and talk videos where we carry on the conversation throughout the weekend and even after the show, before and after the show. And I'm working really hard on some new things that I'm looking forward to sharing with you at our watchingthewatchers.locals.com community. Shout out to our YouTube members who joined and supported the show. I see him in the house. Paul Minot. And Paul Minot was very generous at the start of the program today. He donated through his MMA community and for people who want to honor the ever powerful Bill W. Tremendous support for the program. And sort of several of you became members courtesy of Paul. Thank you, Paul, for doing that. I see, let's see here. Lean's here. We've got Curtis Bartle, Shane Sosa, Paul Minot, of course, members in the house, and I'm grateful that you're all there. We also have My law firm, which is really where I spend a huge portion of my time, is helping building a team that helps good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope in their case. Beyond that, in their lives. Free case evaluations. Anybody who is in trouble in Arizona, your referrals keep us very busy, and we're grateful for the opportunity to help people move beyond some of the most difficult situations in their lives, get things back on track, all the while holding government prosecutors accountable, demanding that presumption of innocence be preserved, and holding firm to the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. Thank you for referring people over to us for free case evaluations. Thank you to our mods who modded down the fort. Very busy day, very busy show today, and I'm very grateful for all of you in the community that you're help building. Shout outs to Vienticus, K-Beam, Just Cause, Lean, and Playin' Hooky, all in the house. Grateful for your work. And finally, shout outs to our Spotlight supporters over on YouTube. If you join as a Spotlight supporter or join at an equivalent amount on Locals, you get some nice screen real estate here. So go check out qsimple.com. Thank you to Chris Romero, David B3, and Dr. EMB, who are all supporting the work that we do at that Spotlight level. And that, my friends, is it for us. We are going to be back tomorrow on Monday with the live stream. Tomorrow, we're not going to be here with the live show, but I will be doing a morning walk and talk. And so if you are a member or a supporter, you will, of course, be able to get that. And I would love it if you joined up so that we can carry on the conversation there and throughout the weekend. Otherwise, my friends, since it is the weekend, we had, just a grueling and a busy week this week, right? Not every week do you get a raid of a former president, very likely next president's home by his political opponents in this country. And I was grateful to walk through this with you all. It's a historic thing. We've got a lot of road left on this. We've got a lot to continue to cover. But in order to do so appropriately, we have to unplug from politics, spend time with friends and family, get some very good rest this weekend so that we're back here refreshed and ready to go on Monday. And I look forward to seeing you there. Have a tremendous weekend, my friends. Be very well, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.